Chapter 13. She approached the police station as she made her way home that evening. It was not her normal route, but some unseen force seemed to guide her in that direction. She wanted to see if Matt was still there. Matt, the man who should be dead. The one who had gotten away. The one she needed to take care of. But not yet. She'd been given another name and he would have to come first. As she reached the corner where the station sat, voices carried on the air. She flattened herself against the corner and peeked around. Matt and Captain Drake were talking as they walked to her car. Their words were too soft to make out, but she could read the attraction that sizzled between them. What did Makenna Drake see in him? Didn't she know what he had done? A renewed anger washed through her. "I should take him now," she whispered. She didn't have her gas can, but the matches were in her pocket. They were always in her pocket. A tactile device she could touch and draw comfort from when necessary. Would a car catch fire with just a match? She doubted it, and it would be stupid to attack them in front of the station. Someone was probably still inside, and if she were caught now, she couldn't finish her mission. His time will come. She felt the voice more than heard it, but it calmed her seething nerves nonetheless. The voice was never wrong. If it said Matt's time would come, then it would. And she would watch him take his last breath when it did. This time, she would be sure. An engine hummed to life, and a moment later she watched the car drive away. She waited until the car turned the corner before she continued toward her house. She still had hours to kill. Hours before she could fulfill her mission and rid the town of one more monster. The large house appeared before her, and she paused momentarily. What if he had an alarm system? He was wealthy enough to afford one. Not only was he the prominent doctor in town, but she had it on good authority that he was overcharging patients and pocketing the extra. It almost always came down to money, didn't it? Money ate at men's hearts and fueled greed and jealousy. The Gospels had been correct when they stated that it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Just another reason she had been called to rid the town of these men. They would never enter the kingdom of God, so there was no reason for them to continue life on earth. "Leave it alone," the voice whispered. "It's too dangerous." "No," she hissed. She hated that voice, that weak voice. The weak voice had controlled her for too long, until she had broken free 5 years ago, until she had been shown what she had to do. The first kill had been the hardest because the voice kept trying to dissuade her. She had hesitated when she struck the first match and burned her finger through her gloves. But she knew her mission had to be completed. Her first mission had been simple, to hurt Matt Fisher. He needed to pay, but he couldn't be first. He needed to feel the pain she had felt, so she'd been shown women in his life. After Matt's death, the visions had stopped. She had missed them, but without them there was no sense of purpose. So she had let the weak voice take over again, until the visions returned. But this time they had been different. They told her she had proved herself, that she had earned a more important mission, to rid the town of those who cheated and stole, and Dr. Hayworth was one of the worst. She walked around the perimeter of the house, looking for any signs of a security system, but saw none. No cameras, no motion sensors, no lights of any kind shining from within. Probably too confident in the safety of this small town to spend the money. She returned to the living room window. She tried lifting the window, but it was locked, just like the one last night. She cursed the changing weather. Winter was coming, and the need for open windows had diminished. She withdrew the rock from her pocket. It was the perfect size, really. Small enough to fit in her hand, but large enough to make the necessary hole in a window. She drew her hand back and slammed the rock into the side of the window nearest the curtain. Her body froze as the glass shattered, and she waited for any indication it had woken the occupant. But the silence pressed on. Unscrewing the cap, she poured the contents of the gasoline into the window, and then set the container on the ground to pull out the matches. The moon had disappeared behind a cloud, offering the perfect shadow of obscurity. She struck the match, enjoying the heat and the light of the dancing flame for a moment, before she dropped it inside the window. It took only an instant to find the gasoline, and then the blaze climbed to the roof. She stepped back to admire her work, but suddenly a light flicked on in the house. She hissed under her breath and turned to run. There would be no sticking around to enjoy this one. "I told you so," the voice whispered as she fled the scene. Too late, she realized she had forgotten her gas can, but no matter, she always wore her gloves. There would be no fingerprints on it, and she could easily pick up another one. No, the focus now was getting away unseen. She was almost off his property when her foot slipped in a soft piece of ground, and she tumbled to the ground. Pain tore through her hand, and she lifted it to see a jagged cut. She looked around for the rock she must have landed on, but the moon had slipped behind the clouds again. It was too dark. "Run," the voice whispered. "Get out now." "Shut up," she hissed at the voice, but a trickle of fear pressed in on her. Had she left a footprint when she slipped? Had she bled on the rock? Surely she was far enough away that it wouldn't matter. Would they search this far? She should stay and search, but then the faint sound of sirens in the distance reached her ears. Would they have been alerted so quickly? He must have called. That was the only explanation. 2 failed missions. The failure pressed down on her like a smothering blanket. She was losing her touch. No, it was Matt's fault. Seeing him alive again had thrown her for a loop. She would have to put this mission on hold and take care of him. Him and the female cop.